Well, what really killed George Washington, our first president and general that was in the that fought against the British in the American Revolution, a founder of this nation, and probably the most important founder of this nation, he endured all these hardships during the Revolutionary War and conflict of 1776 that began in 1776 or 1775, actually. What really killed him? His doctors. His doctors. I want to illustrate this point because a lot of people think, well, he was sick, and yeah, it's like they tell the story today like he was sick, and his doctors were not using the best methods back then because they didn't know. Well, I'm going to tell you that his doctors flat out killed him. And we'll give you the story. And this research actually goes back to the 1930s, which was very accurately taken from all the best records. So what they did was George Washington was taken in the night of December 1799 with a sore throat. Now today, if you get a sore throat, what was not known back then, the best thing to do was to take massive quantities of vitamin C, which is a hormone. But what they did back then, they used these doctors that were bleeders. So they were sent for, and they took from George Washington 14 ounces of blood. Then the next morning, the family's physician arrived and proceeded to bleed him again copiously. So here's George Washington in his earlier days before the damn doctors got him, and here's George Washington crossing the Delaware River in one of the snowiest, iciest times in our nation, which we might get into here again. He survives all that to be killed by doctors. So he's bled once, then bled again the next morning by the family physician, and they don't really record how much it was. They said copiously, twice within few hours, and again the same evening. So that's 4 times, 3 times in the next day. First time was the initial day. And then they gave him a dose of mercury. Does this I'm going to tell you, even today, you got more danger getting involved in doctors than you actually do than anything crossing the Delaware in the middle of the snowy winter, even if it was a winter that was marked by a mini ice age. Next morning, he was given another dose. This is the second morning of mercury. Then another physician was called into consultation. So this guy's got a cold and they're sucking all his blood out and they're giving him mercury twice. So they took an additional, again, after the 4 times they'd taken out the blood, and giving him 2 doses of mercury, they took out another 32 ounces of blood from General Washington. And he did exclaim, let me die in peace without the freaking aid of my doctors. He actually said that on his deathbed. And the doctors actually killed this guy. He could have probably lived another 20 years for all I know. There was no alleviation of the disease. Yeah, really. So 10 more grains of this mercury were given, followed by tartar emenic in large doses. And then on his extremities, blisters were applied into his throat. So in other words, first president, George Washington, the father of our country, and commander of our forces in the Revolutionary War against the British that formed our nation. Did he die of a sore throat? No, he actually died from his treatment of his doctors. And they figure what was taken out of his blood was at least half his blood supply, besides giving him 2 doses of mercury. So you don't need an assassin to kill somebody. You need incompetence. That's really what it boils down to. And this is going on a daily basis. Now, what covers a lot of the crimes of this, if George Washington was 22 years old, they would have killed him with his treatment probably anyway. Maybe he would have survived or just barely survived. But since he was older at the time, You know, the cover story is, well, he was old and he got sick and he died. Well, the doctors killed him. And here he is, surviving the hardships at Valley's Forge, the cold winters, you know, the army in rags, huddled, you know, starving to death, ready to fight the British, the Huns, the Hessians. And, you know, he survives all this, and it takes the medical profession some years later, when he's living in safety, when the war is over, no problems are going on, they've actually tortured him to death. And, you know, it's not said actually in the references I'm reading right now, but he did state, "Let me die in peace without the aid of my damn doctors." If you take out half your blood when you're feeling sick, is that not going to kill you? Plus, they give you 2 doses of mercury. Today, do doctors do this exactly? Not exactly. Not exactly. But there are many cases where they're doing things pretty damn close. And medical mistakes seem to never be punished. I don't know why the hell our prosecutors aren't going after that. They should go after, you know, somebody stealing a candy bar from a store like nothing. Or, I don't know, picking up a piece of scrap metal someplace and somebody says, you know, I don't know, you know, there's examples of people getting hammered for picking up a piece of scrap metal that didn't belong to them or something. They didn't get permission to get it. Well, they'll do that. But here, doctors murdered the greatest founder of our nation, the general that was responsible for forming the United States of America. They basically torture murder him. And this story's actually gone untold, but it's applicable today, to today, because Donald Trump, you better watch out. I'm telling you right now, don't get a flu shot. Don't get a flu shot. Take a lot of vitamin C and avoid those bastards, because in the case of George Washington, I think it was total gross incompetence, but, you know, a lot of them I think are totally gross incompetent today. But then there's other people out there that are very devious. And one of the peoples I can actually mention on a side note, because, you know, there's medicine of the body and there's medicine, quote unquote, of the mind. Probably some of the worst doctors we got, which I don't even consider them doctors, are the psychs. The ones that give out medicines. Could you imagine if they'd had them around back in the 1700s when the American Revolutionary War was going on? Oh, they'd be medicating all these people for anxiety, stress, and depression or whatever, because the war wasn't going just right. And guess what? We probably would have lost because they would have dulled their senses of our American Revolutionary leaders. And it's something else. It's another tangent I can go on. I can imagine all the great entertainment figures of the 60s and the 50s who were just coming on the scene, that were radicalizing a lot of pushing new boundaries, especially in the 1950s and 60s. You know, what they would have done to them. So they're even worse than regular medical doctors, and I want to give that a mention in this, because you can be killed through medicine, even today, as it was back in 1799. I should also mention that one of the first things they do when they go to a hospital, or the one of the first things they don't do when you go to a hospital, is give you what is termed orthomolecular medicine, which is healing the body through nutrition, which involves higher doses of vitamins, especially certain vitamins. As a matter of fact, if you were taking vitamins before you went into a hospital, you're not going to get those vitamins anymore. And that, in turn, could kill you. Just as dumb as a policy as bleeding people's blood from their body and giving them mercury. Oh, today they know about it, but, you know, the problem is everything's a racket, and back then they had a racket with giving people mercury and bleeding them to death. And in some cases, the bleeding helped. Actually, there's applications where that can help a little bit, but you don't want to take over half the blood out of your body, just like you can kill somebody with antibiotics. You know, your antibiotics suppress your immune system. The doctors killed our greatest founding father and the great general and first president of the United States, George Washington. I just want to give that little bit of information, not very well known. And what's true to yesterday is still true today. I don't want to mention, well, I guess I could, Angelina Jolie. I can imagine who the hell her doctors were who recommended that she have her ovaries taken out and her breasts removed with the aspect that she might possibly get cancer when Angelina Jolie is on this organic whole food diet for the most part. I think the chances that she would have ever got breast cancer with the BRCA1 gene or not are basically none, especially with her, very fussy diet she takes. In the case of George Washington, they knew about vitamin C and he would have got better on his own. He would have got better on his own. He would have been stronger for it. But as you well know, and as you well know now, the ones that really killed George Washington was the total incompetence of the doctors. And I'm going to tell you today, the same type of deal exists. Because if you want to give you examples, back in the 1940s, it was Dr. William Frederick Kleiner. He cured 60 out of 60 polio cases with vitamin C. And actually, there was another doctor before him that was curing polio with vitamin C. I forgot his name. This is back in the 1940s, when vitamins were, an early discovery at the time. He publicizes this, and you know what it meets with? What kind of, oncolates from the doctors? They don't care. The reason they don't care is because it doesn't line their pocket. Always look at the financial aspect of everything, especially doctors that are psychs. Addictive psychotropic drugs is one of the biggest rackets going, biggest, strongest growing rackets going. And of course, it's all hooked in with the FDA and the federal and state governments. The war on drugs ought to begin with some of the damn medicines that are out there, especially the psychotropic medicines, which are probably more damaging than the bloodletters of 1799 that killed George Washington. Anyway, just figured I'd put this out. It's something you probably don't know. Now you know. Now you know it. And stay healthy. And, hopefully you'll find a good doctor, because you do need them sometimes for certain things. I mean, if you get in a car accident and your legs are broken or something because of the severity of the accident, you definitely are going to need a doctor. But hopefully it's a doctor that knows how to not just reset bones, but also knows how to heal the body through nutrition. But that would be a very rare bird, no doubt about it.